Yeah!
High five. All right, you guys, how's that for an opening?
I know.
I think we should keep it. Usually we count in and it's very serious, and we start with a, hi, I'm Katie Morton. I'm an energy healer, an author, and a happiness expert.
And I'm Jennifer Palmer. I'm the owner of Nourishing Journey, and I'm a Reiki master, a colon hydrotherapist, a traditional naturopath. I'm just all around really awesome person, I think.
I agree. And this is Buddha. Sorry, we can't forget to intro our little buddy. Anyway, okay, Law of One. That's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit what is the Law of One. So back in the 80s, some scientists wanted to make contact with extracurricular activities. No, extraterrestrials. They were trying to contact aliens, and so they learned how to meditate and channel. So what channeling means is just basically getting a mental download of information. So they figured out how to do this. They were contacted by the group of Ra. Ra is essentially what? A race of extraterrestrials?
Well, supposedly they are Pleiadian. So,
and most people are going,
what? From the Pleiades. So let's back up for just a moment and have a conversation about E.T.
Okay.
So there are different forms of extraterrestrial types of beings, and I know this is way down the rabbit hole for many, many people, but I highly encourage you to just get neutral.
Open up the mind.
Open up the mind and realize this may not be so crazy. I think it's crazy to think that we're the only ones in the universe. You know, why would we be the only planet that has any form of life? And if you look at some of the latest studies and things going on with NASA even, you'll see that they're discovering that no, there actually is life on other planets, and that the chances of there being other beings just like us, huge, huge chances. So the latest science is definitely in favor of the realization that we are not alone in the universe. So coming from that perspective, if you add in with that the idea of spirituality and consciousness levels, which is what we're going to talk about today, you'll then start to understand more and more about how maybe this actually is something to look into. And our hope today is just either confirm something that maybe you already think, or to kind of get you to open up a little bit to something outside of your immediate understanding. Whether it's true or not, who really knows? But the teachings in the Law of One are pretty amazing. And it's something that I know I was coming to on my own through my guidance system, and was getting a lot of the same information. And then when I was introduced to the Law of One, it was confirmation after confirmation after confirmation of things that I already felt to be truth.
Ditto what she said, because I had the same exact experience. So, and I think a lot of you, when you see what we're about to talk about today, you know, you might have the similar feeling of, oh yeah, I knew that. So impress yourself and watch.
And be open.
And be open.
Because this is a little strange at times.
It's super weird. It's cool.
So the Law of One. Dun, dun, dun. We are all source energy, fragments of the whole.
Oh yeah, backing up to the scientists that wound up channeling the group of Ra, this is the type of information that they channeled from the extraterrestrials. And it's not really something that I feel would have come from a person. So really, I know we said we arrived at similar conclusions, but just the language of it is pretty far out. But anyway,
yeah, it really is. And they go into a lot of details that the average person would not even think to go into. I can't verify that it's a valid source. Who can? But again, I think in the spirit of openness and wanting to get to truth and understanding, it is good to look at different sources.
True.
And I love what their message is. We are all source energy, fragments of the whole. So what that means is, and many of you have probably heard, that we are all one. We are oneness. We are actually the same. And when people hear that the first time, there is a lot of resistance to that idea because I am not the same as that person over there. And I can surely say I've had those thoughts too. But what they do express in this book, The Law of One, is that the idea that we are one, really we come from one, but we are separate expressions in a way of that one. We are fragments of the one, experiencing different aspects of the one.
True. Okay, so, and we're going to dial back just a second. So the scientists put it into a book, so that's what we're talking about. There's 5 books in the series. The first book is called The Raw Materials, and then the rest of them are just books 2 through 5.
And they're called The Law of One.
And they're called The Law of One. So, okay, so we're all source energy fragments of the whole. That sounds a bit weird, but essentially what it means is, if you look at it from, you know, the God people perspective, it's like, well, God birthed all us humans, and so we're fragments of the whole, which basically means we're all pieces of God. You know, some might say, oh, he made us in his image and likeness. The Law of One folks would say that, well, you know, why did God do this? And it was so that God could get to know himself, which is interesting. So, but what it says is that since we're all fragments of the whole, we all have all the same potentials, for polarities. And what we mean by polarities, in really simple terms, good and evil. So we all have the potential for good and we all have the potential for evil. And you might be saying, oh, I don't have the potential for evil. Yes, you do.
I have never said that. But I really don't. I don't have an evil bone in my body.
Moving on then. Ascension path. Jennifer.
So this is one of the things that I was actually getting before I came into contact with the Law of One material. The ascension path, I was shown that there are different forms of ascension. Originally, when I started going down the spiritual journey and with energy work, what I was told by some of my teachers was that as you raise your vibration, you become more and more light, the closer you get to God, basically. Well, there is some truth in that, and then there's also some, I think, misunderstanding in that as well. What I started coming into contact with were what I was finding were high vibrational beings, but they were not necessarily there for my highest good. They were not there in a positive way. They were there in a more negative way. Through tests or challenges or what have you. But they were definitely higher vibrational, and I can only say that because I know some of you might be like, what do you mean by higher vibrational? There's a frequency that you tune into, and the more sensitive you get to energy, the more you feel those frequencies around you and what they represent. And it was definitely the beings that I would come in contact with at times in working with other people or whatever happened along the way. I would find that they were incredibly witty and intelligent and yet very high vibrational. They had a wisdom about them, but it was not an alignment at the same time, and I could feel that, I could sense that. And so I started questioning what that was, and this is literally what came to me. I didn't say it's service of self versus service of others, but I knew there was a difference, and I was shown that there was 2 paths of ascension, basically, and what I called positive and negative, but the Law of One calls service of self and service of others. And so the positive path of ascension is really about being of service to others. And what they're very clear to say is it's not about being a martyr. It's not about, service of others despite self.
Yeah.
But it is about being of service to others while also loving self. So it's loving others and self. The more negative path would be more like service of self, stepping all over others if you need to, but service of self.
Yeah.
Self is most important.
Well, and I think specifically what they say, it's the manipulation of others so that you can gain power. So you want others to serve you, basically. So they say if you want to figure out who's in service to self, look for power-hungry people who are manipulating others in order to be served by them. Now, I have to add one really strange fact about law, well, fact, whatever, about Law 1, is that they're really clear to say that both paths, whether you're for service to self or service of others, it all serves the creator. So essentially, the infinite creator, or God, source, energy, whatever your word is for that higher consciousness, created the whole mess, and he's cool with it. Okay.
Well, and so, I mean, I think most of us like to think, at least, that we are on the service of others path. And we like to get into judgment of those who are not. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where this comes into play, thou shalt not judge, right? Judgment, it's not about the judgment of others. It is truly about your own path and what are you living and doing, and are you in alignment with your purpose? And that the service of self and service of others, they, in a way, they help each other grow through their own individual paths by creating the gap between the two, in a way, and the definition of, oh, I'm this or I'm this. But it helps you, and we'll get into this in a moment, but it helps you determine which path are you actually going to take as a soul for now in your development process.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of people start out when they're younger and they're sort of in that survival mode. They're in service to self because, and here's another fun fact, is that you can, yes, you can switch paths, but also service of others, and you touched on this already, but I just want to make it really clear. The service of others path is actually service of self and others. Mm-hmm. And the other is just service of self. So they're both serving self. So I just want to make that clear. And a lot of times you need to start out serving yourself before you can help others. It's like they say, put your gas mask on first before you put it on the kid. You know, kind of we've beaten that one to death, but that's basically what it means. You got to take care of yourself or you can't take care of others. So don't let yourself go to pot, is all I'm saying.
It's not about being a martyr.
Mm-hmm.
And in that material, it was very clear, it's not about self-sacrifice. It is about preservation of self while helping others, where the service of self path is, who cares about the others? I'm all in it for me.
Yeah, think of like the Titanic. There's people who would just shove you out of the way and get on the lifeboat, or there's people who would like help as many people get onto the boat as they can.
And reserve their own spot.
Yeah, which one are you?
So I hope that's clear. This made a lot of sense to me and some of the experiences I've had along the way. And it's a lot more sensical to me to think of it in this way. And I can see people where maybe they have gone down one way and you can see them turning around and trying to go a different way. And it's neat to have that awareness that it's all choice in that way, but that's what 3D is all about.
Sure is. When we say 3D, we just mean like, the earth people, not the spirit people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So another thing that they talk about is distortions and perspectives. They call it the distortion. We are all a little distorted.
Everyone. So this strange thing, one of the many strange things is that group of Ra, when anytime they talk about their own opinion or their own perspective, they would also call that a distortion. Mm-hmm. Everything that's not infinite creator almost, I guess, pretty much is a distortion. It's just a perspective. If you look at light shines through a prism and it's different colors, they're all really pretty, but it's a distortion. And I think it's kind of important to say, we all have our own perspective and we like to think that we're right. It's a distortion. It's no matter what, no matter how many facts you can back it up with, it's still a distortion because somebody else has their own perspective and they have just as many facts to back it up in the other direction.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, don't separate yourself from others because they see something differently. Try to understand how they're seeing things because none of us have the full perspective ever about anything. It is always coming through our own distorted viewpoint in this one body, when there's so many other people around us experiencing the exact same situation in a very different way.
That's right. There's my story, your story, and the truth.
And your story.
Well, okay, that too. It's everybody's story.
But this makes it a lot easier also to see, that other guy over there who thinks very differently than me. We still come from the same ultimate creator. We're still going to the same space eventually. And they may see a situation very differently than me. Politics, religion, anything. You name it. I mean, there's different viewpoints all the way around. And like you said, there's lots of different points to back it up.
Yeah, because we were all raised differently,
Yes.
and we've had different life experiences, and that's what colors your perspective. And so a lot of people make the mistake of saying, well, I experienced this, and so that makes me right. And it's like, no, it just means that's your distortion because you experienced that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Opinions are like something that everyone has that I won't discuss.
And we often call it truth.
We do. It's just your opinion.
Yeah.
As we like to say, that's an interesting opinion. Don't we? We like saying that. It's
Yes.
fun. It's just one person's opinion. It's something we have chosen as a refrain lately.
I like it.
I do too.
So one of the things that they like to talk about in the books as well, to help you understand this whole idea of ascension and what we're all going through as souls, whether we understand it or not, is we're going through these different densities as an energy. The first density is awareness. So planets, air, water, fire, the elements, that's what they call first density. It's just, there's an awareness. Energy is aware. It's not self-aware, but it's aware at this point. Then you have the second density, which is all about growth. So that's where the plants and animals start coming around and coming into existence. So your pet, they've talked about, if I remember this correctly, your pet is on the verge of third density. So they have become a pet to learn more about what does it mean to be human in a way. And then a wild animal is probably further away from that.
Yeah, and I think pets could have polarities of self-service. My pet is very self-serving, but my parents' pet is in service to others.
Oh,
so
wow.
your pets can choose too.
They're working on it.
They are.
Third density is self-awareness. It's human consciousness. And it literally is the density where you as a soul determine which path of ascension you're going to start going down. It sounds like if you can already place it in the second density, or maybe they're right near the third density, they're starting to play with which way they're going to go. But it's really in third density where the decision's made. And once the decision's made and you've polarized more towards one or the other, you then can move to the fourth density, which is a real true understanding of love. Loving of self and or loving of others. If you're going down the love of self path, you're going to understand more and more of what love is through the eyes of and the perspective of the distortion of that particular brand of love. If you go down the other path, it's more about the love of others. And the Christed consciousness, I think, is very much about that. So if you know anything about Christed consciousness, you know it is about unconditional love and oneness. Well, that's really what they're talking about. That's what that is promoting, is this fourth density understanding of love of others.
Yeah, and one addition to that is, some people are hard to love. I'm just saying, it's true, but the fourth density is about loving them no matter what, all of them. So it's understanding that every human of Earth, no matter how flawed, because we're all flawed, is deserving of unconditional love. It's just loving the whole thing, even the parts you're like, you're trying not to judge.
And then you get to other densities. The higher ones, the fifth density is wisdom and conscious creation. So you take everything you've learned about love and your desire for it and of it, and you bring in this idea of wisdom. How were things created? How was the world created? How was the universe created? How does all this work? Supposedly that's what fifth density is about. Then sixth density is what they call the unity density, where love and wisdom are blended together for the idea, really, of that blended conscious creation experience. Once you get that down, you then join with the Creator once again. You merge back into the creation source.
I have a question that viewers might be wondering.
Mm-hmm.
At what point in this are you dead?
I was thinking the same thing. I was trying to get through it and then go back and explain that. Usually, this world and these lives that we live here in this world, it's mostly third density, but they do say that there are some that come back, they call them wanderers, that come back from fourth, fifth, or even sometimes very rarely sixth density. They come back to help us expand and grow and learn and move through this third density, because it is a really hard density to get through. And we're so oblivious to the choices that we're making. We don't really understand them. So people like Jesus or Buddha or some of the other prominent teachers that are around today, you know, you might say they probably are from a higher density, and they're here to help us learn and grow. Yeah.
Thanks for explaining that.
Answers those questions.
Okay, carry on.
And then the eighth is starting over. You know, I guess they get bored when we're all together as one again. We get bored.
Yes.
So then we all disperse again and start over.
Yeah. So you can and maybe, well, according to the law of one, there's different worlds, different planets. So planet Earth is this, you know, a 3D planet where we're all just muddling through like bozos on the bus. Supposedly there are other planets populated with beings that are of higher densities. So maybe when you get to the eighth, starting over again, you get to go to a fancy new planet with people who don't suck.
As the element of fire. Or water.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's neat to think about, and a lot of what they teach in these books makes a lot of sense to me, and has helped me open my mind and my awareness and my acceptance level of others. And really, I feel I'm in general, I think one time you said I'm always kind of like chill.
Yeah,
This
so
is part
she's
of...
got the chillax factor. And that's what Law of One can help people with.
Yes.
Really, it's just understanding to drop the judgment, to put yourself in other people's shoes, to get a little empathy for them and their story without being a doormat.
Yeah.
That's all. It helps you kind of dial down the volume on the like annoyed factor when it comes to other people.
Yeah, true. Well, I do want to say that there's so much more in these books that we can't possibly even really cover. And I don't even know how much good we actually did these books. I hope I hope we got your curiosity up and that you'll go and read about it. We will link in the video.
We'll link below how you can find the books.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably about it for today. Another Law of One high five. Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.
Bye.